So good day. So I am here today to have the individual video reflection or my personal learnings on the server administration course um, through our task given by our professor. So let's start. So for the first task, we have the task setting up the lab environment. So in here, um, we installed the Windows Server ISO, and also we configure its settings. So as we can see in the screenshot on the left, the network we choose is the NAT network, and we also configured in the general that there is a sharing system there that we choose like bi-directional, because later we will install the Windows 10, and we choose bi-directional for them to access the files to each other and share files. So here is one of the process in installing the Windows Server 2016. So we also choose the storage of the installation on um, how much how large will the installation be. So there are no issues encountered here, just a couple of reinstallation because I try to test some storage to for the installation, because my first installation is lagging in my desktop, so I try to reinstall again and give a large storage in the next installation. So the next task, which is the task 2, is the installing of Windows Server 2016. So here is the installing of Windows Server 2016 in the virtual machine. So this we choose here the how how large of the disk space it will consume. So I choose the 20 GB, and also we choose the Windows Server 2016 standard evaluation for the installation. And in here we the default, we choose the default, which is the English for the language. And in here, the bottom left screenshot, we configured the username of the Windows Server 2016 and also its password for me to if I turn on the virtual machine of Windows Server 2016, it will require me the username and the password. So I need to remember the first setup of the username and the password. So the next task, which is the configure Windows Server 2016. So in here we did two tasks, which is the VM guest additions and the server manager. So in VM guest additions, so it is right here in the top right screenshot. So why do we need the VM guest addition? So I learned that we needed to install it because it lets us optimize the operating system for for better performance, and it allows me to maximize the screen. As we can see here, it is maximized, and um, the progress here is just smooth in installing the VM guest additions and also the server manager. So in server manager we added roles in here, and we also configure its PC name. So we change its computer name into another name. So next is just task 4. So in here, after having the Windows Server 2016 in the virtual machine, we also installed the Windows 10 in the virtual machine. So in here, uh, the process here is smooth, but I also tried to reinstall it for a couple of times because it takes up my storage in my SDD in my desktop. So it keeps on restarting every time I log in my Windows 10, and the time of installation takes a couple of minutes, maybe a half of a minute. eh, I mean half of an hour, like 30 minutes. But the task is just smooth and easy to do. So in here, in task 5, um, we did the joining Windows 10 computer to the domain. So the the Windows 10, we configured some uh, our I mean in the Windows 20 Server 2016, we added roles. So we added our so I have a partner, Nico Paul Gomera. So we added our user. I mean, we as a user. So if if we can log in next time, we will not log in as an administrator but as a user as ourselves, because in here we added individually. So we added our Windows 10 user to the computer domain. So we added the user in the Windows Server 2016. So as we can see here in the bottom left, there is we are trying to log in as an individual user, which is the Nico Paul Gomera, and I also log in as myself. So next, so in task 6, we did 3 tasks, which is the download and install RSAT. We also create the organization unit, which has 2 parts, so part 1, part 2. And also we created a user account, and it's time restriction logon. So in downloading and installing RSAT, we need to know the Windows version for it to be compatible. So the RSAT and the Windows needs to be compatible to each other for it to work smoothly. And in the creating organization unit, I learned that there are 2 parts in it. So we created first the CCS. So we tried um, the the 2 steps in creating organization unit, and it it just the process was so smooth. And in creating user account, I learned so much in here because it it I know here that I can restrict the user on logging in the computer. So there are 7 days in a week, so I can choose on what day the other user will be restricted upon logging in the computer. And I can also choose the time of the day on which the user will not be um, will be not will be restricted on logging in, or will be allowed on logging in the desktop. So next, the task 7 is to set up DHCP scope and DHCP reservation. So in here, in setting up DHCP scope, as we can see in the bottom left, we configure its start IP address and the end IP address. So we inputted the start IP address by looking up the IP address of the Windows 10, because it is it is the IP address what we needed to connect it to the DHCP scope. The IP address we used is the Windows 10, as our DHCP scope. And in reservation, the MAC address is also the physical address in the Windows 10, and it's also the IP address we choose is also the physical is the IPv4 address of the Windows 10. So the process we did here is just smooth, but we encountered some problems like um, the reservation or the list was not active. So we tried to fix it and find that we fix it by turning off some I mean private policies in the Windows 10, like the firewall, and also we restarted the Windows 10, and after some restarting, and we inputted in the CMD of the Windows 10 the renew and um, the renew like the IP config. We find out later that in the DHCP reservation we fixed the issue and it became active after some trial and errors. So in here, the next task is to create a DNS host A record, to create a DNS alias record, to look up the group policy management console, and to create and link a GPO. There are two parts, and also to rename, unlink, and delete a GPO. So in here, since it has 6 parts, so I learned a lot in them, and I learned every inch of them. So in creating a DNS host A record, it is just easy in this part. We inputted the an IP address that is reserved, and as we can see in the screenshot of the left, there are um, the added DNS host A record will be seen here, and also in creating a DNS alias record, we inputted the like the IT files as our name, as our alias record, and it was just easy at first, but later we cannot ping it the alias record because of some problems again. So we try some fix of the error, like we tried to flash DNS, and we also tried to ipconfig renew and restarting the Windows 10, and after a while we fixed the error, and we can now ping the alias record in the Windows 10. I mean the Windows Server 2016. So we also look up to the group policy management console, and we can see there are many policies written and listed. And in creating and link a GPO, there are two parts, but the first part is much easier for me. So we tried to do this in different users, like in the administration and in my partners, because in mine I forgot my password, but we successfully did it. We cannot access the Internet Explorer in my partner's user in the desktop, and also in the administrator user in the desktop. So we successfully finished this creating and link a GPO, and also the rename, unlink, and delete a GPO was just easy. We just need to right click the GPO and we can see all the options there, which is the rename and unlink and to delete the GPO. So last task 9, which is to install Windows Backup feature, perform a full backup, perform a custom backup, schedule a backup, examine the backup content, and restore from a backup. So in here, I did not do this task anymore because my PC cannot handle it, since from the task 7 and task 8 it keeps on restarting, and it takes a couple of minutes that every time we video record, it will take um an hour. So for this task, I think my PC cannot handle it because it will take too much storage in my PC. But um, even they even I did we did not do this task. I watched the video of the tutorial on how to do this task, and I learned some things like the on like installing the Windows Server. I mean on how to um, install the Windows backup feature and the full server backup, where in full server backup we can see all the backups and its and full details. As we can see here, we can see its latest copy and the oldest copy in the bottom left screenshot. And also so this is the installation of the Windows Server backup, and in the bottom right is the um, backup in VHD format. To it is used to access disk as local disk for us to browse the files inside the disk. And there are many parts in this task. So there's also a schedule a backup, examine the backup content, and restore from a backup. So I learned so much things in this task 9, and it's so much it is very important for us to remember this task because um there are many chances and possibilities um that you will lose the files in the Windows. So that's all for my video reflection of all the tasks in the server administration. So thank you, and thank you.